Hi guys, and welcome back to the new and improved Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the dawn of a new age himself, Reese.
Hello.
Before we start, please do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button so you never miss an upload.
Oof.
Look at that. Different intro. So,
Chilling.
Paul, what have you done over the holidays? Since though we are back after a good 2-week break, I think.
Mm. I've been playing quite a bit of Pauper, to be fair. Mostly just like testing different decks. Since the Swift Spear ban, I've been a bit sort of off Kuldotha. So just trying to basically figure out what I want to play for the Northern Pauper Open in February. So I've been playing all sorts really. White Weenie, still playing Kuldotha, Grixis Affinity, Jeskai Glitters. Just trying to find something that sticks. Not set on anything yet, but we are getting there. I hope. And then, gone.
No, I was just gonna say. So, do you feel like obviously the red deck's been hurt to your play style of it? Obviously, I'm assuming, which is why you're trying other decks, or do you just think you want to see what the field's like now with red having a damper on it, or?
Yeah, I think the way I played it got very damaged by the lack of Swift Spear. I still feel Kuldotha is like really good. But you have to be like obviously fully all in on the bushwhacker plan basically.
Yeah.
Which is slightly less my play style. But we'll see. I might end up on it, yeah. And then other than Pauper, I think the last thing I played was a last minute modern event on Saturday. Which I ended up winning with Rug Humans / Rug Prowess, whatever they want to call it. Which was really fun. But I got to play basically Swift Spear, Lava Dart, Lightning Bolt, and essentially Reckless Impulse with the Quest and Druid. So it was basically like Kuldotha.
Is the Question Druid that like adventure card with the Reckless Impulse effect on the other half? Is that what
It's
that is?
like a
Quirion
Quirion. Is it
Druid
Quirion Dryad or
yeah,
Quirion Druid
yeah.
on one side and a Reckless Impulse on the other?
Card seems sweet.
But yeah, it was good. What about yourself?
So I did try to make sure that I did take a bit of time off, to be fair. So obviously, I want to enjoy Christmas with my newborn son and all that sort of stuff. But I did in the downtime manage to get my head around this new amazing editing software, and probably people are sick of seeing random shorts all over what I'm now on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I have just been bombarding with shorts because I've just been enjoying messing around with the editing software. We've obviously got a new logo, which you can see if you're watching on thing in the middle of the screen. And yeah, so that was the main thing. We've obviously got a new intro, a new logo, and hopefully I should be able to get my head around how the editing works and get some new editing in here so it'll look all nice and professional like. We've got to up our game now. But Magic related wise, I played a league with Gardens with Mardu Synth Black White Blade. I think I maybe just played a couple of games with Black White Blade, maybe not necessarily a league. And I also played a couple of tournament practice games with the Dredge deck, which we'll touch on later. And yeah, hopefully the uploads of the league should be coming soon to the channel. And along with more shorts on all these sort of stuff, we also do have shorts for cast. We have an Instagram and a TikTok account for Casting Commons now too. So hopefully I should be uploading some sort of snippets from the show. They won't be purpose-made shorts. They will be just like snippets of really funny things that Reese says and nothing that I say because I'm not a funny guy. And yeah, just to kind of get a feel of the show and just get it out there, and because there's a lot of people out there that like do indulge in Magic content, but it's just short form, and obviously like getting our name out there in just shorts is a great way to obviously just get more eyes on it. So that's basically what I've been doing in the break. A lot of planning and prepping and understanding things to make things a lot easier. So yeah,
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was not as just innocently playing Magic, which I would have liked, but definitely a solid one. Anyways, move on to some news. We will do the tournament news first. So the Northern Pauper Open, as Reese has mentioned before, has been announced. Tickets are on sale. Caston Commons will be there in full force. It is on the 18th of February, I believe, is the date. It's the Sunday, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. 18th of February. The event will be in Leeds as always. There's a cap of 64 players. It already has sold 25% of its tickets in over 48 hours. Was the best selling they've ever done, I've been told.
Sick.
So if you are really considering going, I would highly recommend buying your tickets now. Even if you're using an excuse with your half, it's Valentine's weekend, you're staying over in Leeds for the day, that's that sort of thing. You've definitely got ways to wing it. Just I'd consider it and buy your tickets now.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend going as well. Obviously, we've been a bunch of times now, and it's been great every time.
Yeah, and they just keep going from strength to strength. To be fair, they've got player mats you can buy. The events are all smoothly run. I even got my own corner. I really like that. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed knowing where I was gonna sit every round. That was pretty free. Other than that, we have 2 other events to announce which aren't UK based. So there is 2 Pauper 2Ks in Binghamton, New York. I'm saying that right? I think. So there are 2 Pauper 2Ks at Dragon Master Games. One is on the February the 24th, and the other one is April the 6th. So they are quite a bit away. There are guaranteed $2,000 prize pool for the top 8, regardless of how many players. But it also extends to top 16 if they receive 50 or more players. The venue size has a space for 100 players. So if you would like to go, please see the description below for all event information to get your tickets now. Sounds like a sweet event. Callie is mentioned it a few times to me, and he says they're always well run. So it'd be great to see. And I imagine if you want to go and check and see Callie, he'll also be there, I'd imagine. And that is all for tournament news. Moving on to actual news. Caston Commons, in case you missed it, is doing a giveaway. To enter, all you have to do is see the post below in the Twitter page, and underneath, post a picture of yourself subscribed to either us on anywhere that you can listen to us, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever it is. And if you could like and retweet it to help the giveaway get exposure, that'd be greatly appreciated. It is for a chance to win a merch bundle, which has a t-shirt, a mug, and some other goodies inside of it. So that'd be great, obviously, for if you just want to represent and be the only other people, apart from ourselves and our other halves, that have merch, especially with the new sexy logo. Final announcement, I guess. Last and not least, this is the one I'm definitely most excited for. Next week, we'll be having a bonus episode as we have a special guest. I'm delighted to announce that Emma Partlow will be joining us. She's the UK PFP representative, a Cube Master, and a TCG writer/editor extraordinaire. I hope you are as excited to have Emma on the show as I am, because we get to know more information on the ins and outs of TCG and all that sort of stuff, and also the deepest, darkest secrets of the PFP. Not that I think there'll be any dark secrets in there, but you never know. I'm looking forward to it nonetheless.
Yeah, it'll be a good one.
And that is all the announcements, and I can breathe. Anyways, on to the stuff that everyone is here for, which is the challenges. So we have 2 challenges to cover, which is covering the last of 2023. That is Saturday the 23rd of December. There wasn't one on Sunday the 24th. I'm assuming no one wanted to play on Christmas Eve. And finally, there is the Saturday the 30th, which I'm again assuming no one wanted to play on New Year's Eve, which is why there is no Sunday. We do also have a deep dive on the Saturday, just because there is a spicy one that I do think is probably worth covering for sure. Kudos if you can guess which one it is. But other than that, without further ado, Reese, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So the sweet pair of challenges, to be fair. So the 23rd, first place was Monoblue Terror. Second place was Kuldotha. Third and fourth was Dredge and Jeskai Glitters. And then 5th through 8th was Jeskai Wildfire, another Kuldotha, Blue Black Fate, and Colgate. And then the 2 near misses, 9th was another Monoblue Terror, and then 10th was Colgate again. I guess my first comments on it are obviously Dredge doing really well. It's a pretty new version of the deck. Like, I've only seen it the past maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe. And it's ridiculously powerful. If you're not prepared with a bunch of graveyard here, it'll just wreck a challenge completely. We've already talked about like lack of sideboard space in general. And a deck like this doing well will strain that even more, I imagine.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think obviously when Commander Masters was first obviously released or whatever, obviously there was obvious inclusions like all that glitters and all that sort of stuff. But Dread Return people were obviously hyped and scared about, and obviously with the inclusion of Lot Left Giant. I know a lot of people, myself included, had tried like Oops All Spells and all sorts of different stuff. People had tried like Dredge similar to this, but not exactly like this. And I do think Medvedev's really hit the nail, or whoever he helped build it with. I think he mentioned it in his tweet. Was basically to me that the core secret is definitely that Acorn Harvest looks absolutely crucial for helping with the Dread Returns flashback, and also one thing that I know sounds fairly obvious now, but I think back then, like when people were experimenting, is 4 Lotless Giants and 4 Dread Returns is like really what I feel makes his deck like the real deal. Like, you don't actually need to just, here you go, I'm going to hit you for 32. It's, I'll hit you for 10. Next couple of turns, I'll hit you for 12 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's good enough. And that's where I think it's scary. And the deck's really cool.
Yeah. Another comment, I guess, on this top 8 is Jeskai Glitters coming back again. That's another deck that, I guess, obviously we've seen it top 8 Pauper again. But then it sort of fell off quite a bit, and then in the past few weeks again has had a really big resurgence, with a lot of grinders rating it as probably one of the best decks to play at the moment. So seeing that do well's nice. I imagine it's probably due to the amount of control about at the moment. Like, it grinds a lot harder with card advantage than just the blue-white. And it obviously also has answers to like small creatures with Galvanic Blast.
Yeah, I think the deck's surprisingly strong, and I do agree. It literally did it like it won Paupergeddon and then just fell off. It like it just like never ever like even Glitters carried on top 8, but it was just blue white, and now it's kind of got the I think like the cold offer thing where it's kind of conflicted in what to run. Do you run the Jeskai list or do you run like the blue white list? And a lot of like these Glitters players seem to be very much conflicted in that. But I do think the red version is very strong. Like Glinthawk, even just not on synth, just Glinthawk in general is surprisingly just a strong card.
Yeah, I think obviously it's developed quite a bit from the Paupergeddon list. But yeah, it just seems really good. Obviously, the disparity between the two versions, the blue-white one is still a lot faster. You're not playing a bunch of tap lands basically, and you've got a lot cheaper artifacts. But yeah, the draw power and the grind power that the Jeskai one gets is pretty ridiculous, especially at the moment when we're seeing a bunch of like control decks top 8.
Yeah. I think as well, like it seems that the trade-off for Galv Blast, basically, it seems like to me is the big one is obviously speed is one thing, but then the trade-off for Galvanic Blast plus or Rebuke, it seems to be the other one. So like blue-white runs like 4 Rebukes and the red one runs 4 Galv Blasts. I just feel like Rebuke's really like it feels not needed, and
it's always quite all in the blue-white one. You're like, I'm just going to have this for this one turn where I need them to just not be able to pay for it, and then I'll win. Whereas if you just get past that point and you haven't killed them, like the Rebukes just sort of die off.
Yeah, definitely.
Where Galv Blast just sort of never really dies off.
No.
It's always just Galv Blast.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, it's stopping you from dying by interacting with them, or it's killing your opponent. Can't really go wrong. The other thing as well for me is obviously we've got double Kuldotha red, and both are very different lists too. One, I think the sixth place list, I think by is it Hampus or something like that. I could be
Dissonance.
wrong. Dissonance. Sorry, is playing the 8 impulse effects.
Yeah,
Along
yeah.
like going fully on
Yeah, it's pretty
impulses,
heavy.
four seal of fires, like all sorts of different. I don't really know how else to describe. It's just got a lot of different cards in compared to the
It's got a lot of draw power, obviously. It's got
yeah
the four synths and 8 impulses, but it's also got this chromatic stars as well.
yeah.
Um,
Where the other one's all in on like lotus petals, has chain lightnings and um different types of
yeah,
burns. Just a lot more aggressive, and it's just interesting that obviously even now with the whole Swift Spear ban and Tomb Raider being added to the format and things like that, it's still not a set list. Like I would have thought the
yeah,
list would have been set, but maybe like flex slots not. But like that's to me, they're both two completely different decks.
yeah. I think again, like you say, looking at these two lists, we're sort of back to the place where we just have two very different ways to approach it. Like the second place list is the one that I've been seeing a lot more of. Obviously,
Mm,
four Lotus Petals not always stock.
mm,
Um, but basically like a bunch of burn, a couple of goblin grenades, and then your 16 creature package.
mm.
With like your synths and stars or implements. Um, where the draw twos seem to have dropped off quite a bit, but then just essentially having the same creature package, but just cutting down slightly on the burn and just stacking up a bunch of
Mm.
draw twos. Definitely an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be interesting to see if we do see more of like the going back to the 8 rend resolve deck. Um,
Yeah,
I guess the
because
what go on, sorry.
obviously Pinger Burn, like you can still play Pinger Burn, you just don't have Swift Spears.
Mm,
But I guess like you've still got those 8 draw twos, but maybe without the Swift Spear to push in 5-6 damage a game,
yeah,
it's maybe not an option anymore, and it is just Cold Author or bust.
yeah. I do think the whole Kuldotha bushwhacker kind
Yeah,
of is the thing that seems to be set almost.
yeah. The 16 creature package now is basically stock across them all. Sometimes you see them like cut one bushwhacker here and there,
Yeah,
basically, but that's about the extent of it.
I just think that burst damage is what seems to have replaced Swift Spear in a sense,
Yeah,
and it's kind of you can't really not play the red
yeah,
decks without that almost. Um, or the red aggressive decks, I should say. But yeah, um, and I think Pinger Burn really does suffer from obviously suffers a lot from the Swift Spear ban, similar to like Kiln Fiend is probably
mm.
the two decks that were hurt the most by the Swift Spear ban. So, but it is interesting to see obviously this Cold Author deck. Um, the other thing I guess to mention for myself is obviously Mono Blue Terror ended up winning, and
Mm.
I'm actually quite surprised by the Mono Blue Terror taking the whole thing and also seeing that as the Terror deck of choice because obviously the last week before we broke up there was a triple like Blue Black Terror win,
Yeah,
like top eight in, and to be honest like I'm surprised that hasn't followed through because Blue Black Terror is I would imagine pretty good in that sort of Terror mirror and also just generally against the field.
yeah. I think from sort of what I've been seeing is like Murmur Mystic is just hard carrying a lot of these mono blue terrorists now.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess the mono blue lists are probably a better Murmur Mystic list than the blue black.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just because you've absolute stacked on cantrips with like considers and stuff in the deck as well.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it is interesting that we went from basically blue black domination to mono blue being on top again.
Yeah, just in the like literally in the flick of a switch, it's been incredibly fast to just flicker between the two because like Blue Black Terror literally was quite highly represented. Obviously, triple top eight to the point where there was literally two pilots.
Yeah,
It's like a big
because
in one challenge.
even the ninth place list was mono blue again.
Mm.
I'm not even sure I've seen a blue black list in the top 16. Yeah, the other the other three terrors
Mm.
outside of the top 10 or inside of the top 16 are all mono blue as well. So just a big resurgence for mono blue terror.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I guess final touching point is the core gate resurgence as well. We went from basically seeing zero mid-rangey control decks,
Yeah,
no gardens, no core gate, no black white blade really, to now there's two in the top
yeah.
10.
There's a couple in the top 10. It's Colgate. It's still just ridiculously strong. Um, It's just not really changed. It just seems to have a decent matchup against most things in the field. I'm not sure why it fell off for a week or so, really.
Yeah, it does seem odd. Like, it just seems to fall out of favour for almost zero reason. Like, and I genuinely don't understand why. It's just like, I don't know if people just get bored of playing it.
Yeah, that was my suggestion. Was people probably just get bored of playing it and play something else. Yeah. Are you wanting to look more in depth on this dredge list?
Yes, so obviously the deep dive is obviously shock horror on the dredge deck because Medvedev's an absolute mad case with his dredge deck. um, so yeah, I'll just touch on the deck. Obviously, is a list. The deck runs 32 creatures. It runs 8 of the land cyclers, 4 trolls, 4 generous ents. It has 4 Satyr Wayfinders, 4 Maya Tritons, 4 Blanchwood Prowlers, and 4 Scrapwork Mutts. And to finish off the creatures, it's got 4 Stinkweed Imps, which is the only dredger in the deck. Instant and sorcery wise, it runs 4 Gnaw to the Bone, which for those that don't know is gain 2 life for each creature in the graveyard for 2 and a green and has flashback 2 and a green. And the sorceries are 4 Dread Returns, which we've mentioned, which is the flashback reanimate spell, and 4 Acorn Harvest, which is the green cycle of deep analysis. So it's 1 and a green, pay 3 life, put 2 squirrels tokens into play. So
or a 4-mana sorcery.
Or a 4-mana sorcery. And then after that, it basically runs 16 lands, 5 forests, 5 swamps, and then a collection of the type jewels. It's got 1 red-green, 1 black-red, and 4 green-black. Pretty much is the main deck. And I think the deck's very strong, as you've obviously mentioned. It basically kind of self-mills itself with its insert any 2-mana self-mill cards that it's got. Obviously, it's got Scrapwork Mutt, it's got Satyr Wayfinder, it's got Maya Triton, it's got Blanchwood Prowler, and you've obviously and then obviously you've got your land cyclers to go on one along with your tap lands. So it's got a lot of stuff going on in the early game, even though it doesn't look like it has, I think.
Yeah, I think for me the secret to this deck is like the early game is actually what makes it work. The Blanchwood Prowler, the Maya Triton, and the Satyr Wayfinder all just make the deck tick. Like you get cards in your yard to be able to find these. Obviously, you've only got 4 Stinkweed Imps. But these just fill up the yard so fast that you can find them. And then the Scrapwork Mutt, especially with Stinkweed Imp, is just ridiculously OP. Given you discard first, so you can pitch your Stinkweed Imp if you've got one in your hand, then just dredge it back, and then when you unearth it, you do it again. Yeah, it's really good. I think that's sort of what's probably been missing from dredge for the longest time. Obviously, the dread return's pretty important to this specific win condition, but just the volume of 2-mana reasonable guy like 2-mana 2/2, 2-mana 2/1 Death Touch. That dump a lot of cards in the graveyard. It seems really good.
Yeah, the deck does, obviously it's very strong, and I do agree with you. I think Scrapwork was probably the secret MVP for the deck because it does work in like basically every sense. It's a 2-mana guy, as we've mentioned. Obviously, it works well with Stinkweed Imp, works well with Acorn Harvest, which also helps with Dread Return. It's got obviously Unearth itself, so you can use it if you do end up dredging your Stinkweed in, put it back in your hand, and it gives you another way to obviously put it back in the bin, all that sort of stuff. It's just got so many different like utility that I actually do think it's probably the thing that makes the deck tick. To be fair, secretly.
Obviously, it just works early. It works late. It works when you've got Stinkweed Imp in your hand. It works when you've got it in your graveyard. It's it is really good.
But yeah, Acorn Harvest as well. Definitely another card that I never seen in these sort of dredge decks, and it's definitely seems like a strong one, especially when the deck could potentially struggle to flash back the Dread Return. It definitely helps it basically go off that way.
Yeah, I think obviously before we had Dread Return as a common, like Acorn Harvest was there, but there wasn't really much point to it. But now you can just pay 2 mana and you've got 2 guys, and then if you've got, say, a Wayfinder or a Scrapwork Mutt, etc., lying around, that's your Dread Return flashback.
Yeah.
So just it's so efficient at getting your Dread Return back, and obviously the Knot of the Bone doing, I would say, more than a Weather the Storm impression in some games. Just means you survive forever against the aggro decks.
Yeah, you've surprisingly got, obviously you've got the Knot of the Bones, which is the here's all my life kind of thing out of nowhere. Obviously you've got a little bit of life gain and a lot of 2 mana blockers, which obviously kind of get there. You've got the Maya Triton, which obviously just gains 2, but these kind of chump blockers, like you say, Wayfinders and your Prowlers, really do save you to give you that time as well. But yeah, it's definitely a sweet deck. Obviously 4 Lotless Giants seems like an excessive amount, but it helps against graveyard hate. Like if you just randomly mill it over or whatever. Like if you were just having 1 or 2. But then it also just helps just to kill them. As I say, like just get a small one off and then get another small one off and then that's them dead.
Yeah, I do think you need the 4 because your beatdowns are pretty meager. Otherwise, like you're not really casting the Trolls and the Ents. Like you can eventually, but you're not really set up to do that with only 16 lands.
Yeah.
I was playing against this in a league I was playing White Weenie, and essentially game 1 ended up he decked himself because I just used my Prismatic Strands to stop all of his Lotless Giants, and then my board was just bigger than his.
Yeah.
But then game 2, I'm not set up for Dredge, so I had basically 0 graveyard hit. Because you don't really need it against Terror with White Weenie, you can just go wider than them anyway. So yeah, I just got absolutely stomped. Game 2 and 3 because I had no answers to anything, and then just boarded in a bunch of Flare and Pains and put them in the graveyard pretty rapidly.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Is like obviously that works game 1 exactly as you said there. Like Prismatic Stranding works game 1, but game 2 and 3 obviously this sideboard covers that with the Flare and Pains. Yeah.
The sideboard is an interesting one in of itself because every card has flashback.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're milling them or drawing them. You've got access to your sideboard cards with 4 Ancient Grudge, 4 Moment's Peace, 4 Rotten Reunion, and then 3 Flare and Pains.
Yeah, the thing I like about this sideboard is, as you've mentioned, they've all got flashback, but also the way the deck's set up, where it's basically just 4 ofs, and it's less fragile to even actual graveyard hit, is Ancient Grudge really forces that. Like, you could probably work your way through, like, 1 to 2 relics, but or spell bombs or crypts or whatever to an extent, but like that allow like it 4 Ancient Grudge really does allow that. Like people who are skimping on this graveyard hit, it really does allow you to be able to just press through because you've got 4 of every card that you're bothered about.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the main draw of this deck as well. It just does not feel fragile at all.
Yeah.
Like compared to like Cycle Storm or Poison, like the Proliferate Poison deck, it just doesn't feel like a fragile combo deck. It just feels like a really grindy mid-range deck.
Yeah, definitely. Because it does have it has other ways to definitely get round that as well. Like as you said, it's not set up for it. Like don't get me wrong, but worst case scenario, it could get to a point where it can start hard casting some form of Ents, or even just reanimate Ents, reanimate Trolls. Like these are just like real things that it can do. I'll play.
You can always cast a Dread Return for 4 mana and just get
exactly, 6/5. Which isn't out the question by any stretch. Like the deck's not like Oops All Spells where it goes off and then if it fails, it's got no mana. Like it fully is. I'm hitting my land drops. I've got 16 lands, but 8 land cyclers as well, and the Satyr Wayfinder and the Blanchwood Prowler, I believe, all hit lands.
Yeah, they do.
So. Like, you're basically hitting a land after every mill card. Pretty much. So, yeah, the deck's surprisingly strong. And I'm glad it's, like, showed its head into existence.
Yeah, it is really cool. And it will, if it picks up, it'll definitely make people rethink the sideboards. Because it can just power over a few relics. Like, you need a lot of graveyard hit to be able to actually have that as a... Or enough graveyard hit and a sufficiently fast clock, which is made awkward by the fact Knot of the Bone just gains like so much life.
Yeah, I think that's kind of probably where it comes to is you probably needed like an aggressive start to then back it up with graveyard hit to counter the Knot of the Bone and not the Dread Returny stuff. and then you get this like weird battle where you try and ignore one thing and not the other and all that sort of stuff. But it's definitely a sweet deck and definitely makes you rethink, as you say, rethink your sideboards and your strategies.
But yeah, if you come in with just a few relics and expecting them to be enough, I imagine that there won't be. It'll easily overpower a relic.
Yeah. Another thing that I do like, it also makes you rethink your sideboard choices as well. Like not necessarily your, like I'd say if you're running 2 relics already, or sorry, 2 spell bombs, for example, if you're playing gardens, for example, like even though there's a downside with relic, you probably want that over spell bomb because it has the tap ability. Even though I know it's not a lot, but it's still something over nothing.
Yeah, it sort of goes the same way for like the Kuldorfer decks. If they're still running Relic, it may be worth looking at Tormod's Crypt again, just because you just need it to be fast. Like you don't need to waste any time playing a Relic and having 1 mana up to activate it as well.
Yeah. So that's another interesting point. Is like it's not even just reconsider your graveyard hit in your sideboard. It's reconsider your graveyard hit choices. Like a lot of these like oops all spells when that kind of everyone was trying it, people were putting like Fairy Macabre in the sideboard to think it like that's not good enough here. Like it's not fragile. So you can maybe if you're gonna Fairy Macabre something, you counter like one thing. Like you know what I mean, you counter one Dread Return, but then they're gonna do it again next turn.
Yeah, I think the lack of something like surgical extraction in Legacy, like obviously a surgical would be pretty backbreaking against this deck, but we just don't have access to that.
Yeah. So it's definitely like, which obviously I'm happy because this sort of deck exists, even and can fight through Graveyard. So it's definitely cool to see. But yeah, definitely a sweet one, and I do hope we do see it more. Touch wood. Time to move on to the next challenge, which is also the Saturday challenge, which is Saturday the 30th of December. If you would like to take it away.
First place we had Colgate. Second place was Jeskai Glitters. Third and fourth were Colgate and White Weenie. And then 5th to 8th was Blue Black Fair, Blue Black Terror, Boros Gate, and Gardens. And then the 2 near misses, 9th was Fams, and 10th was Kuldorfer. I think for me, obviously Colgate back on top pretty efficiently. And as well, Jeskai Glitters slotting right in there with the back-to-back top 8s. In a very, very controlling top 8 really, with Blue Black Terror, Blue Black Fair, double Colgates, and a Gardens, and a Fams in 9th. Yeah, it's super controlly top 8, but there is some spice in there.
Yeah, but as we've already touched on, though, Jeskai Glitters is really good at like competing with that grind, and it definitely shows here with a second place. Obviously, being able to utilize like Synth and Glint Hawk and things like that to just gain value. So it's definitely a sweet one. Also, though, its list looks very different to the one that we previously mentioned. It has 8 Reckless Impulses. 4 Reckless Impulses, sorry.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. This is this is a list I was trying, and I can't remember if it was.
I think it was
Walker.
Right?
That I got the list off. And it just seemed really interesting. It seemed like an interesting choice of card draw for the deck. Obviously, you've got a bunch of affinity cards, and a bunch of cheap like one and 2 drops. So it does fit very well in that sort of slot.
And how did you find this experience? Like, was it fine? Like, did it seem well with the draw package?
It seems really strong, to be honest. I preferred it to the one without. It just felt like, obviously we're saying it's really good at grinding against control, but it felt like it could just go even further than they could.
Yeah.
Like you would just untap, like if you need a top deck, you just draw a Reckless Impulse and you've got a Mirror Enforcer and a Thoughtcast, and you just go nuts from there. It felt really strong. I think one interesting thing with this list, again in particular, is how hard the sideboard is sort of slanted. Basically just 4 Obsidian Acolytes, and then 4 Crimson Acolytes, and then 4 Standard Bearers. So it's essentially like Gardens, Mono Red, Glitters.
Yeah.
And then just 3 relics as like a Terror hedge, I guess.
Yeah.
Or Dredge hedge.
Or Dredge. It's a very it's a similar sideboard to the one that won Pauper. It was very much like that. and it's very much like I know what I want to not die to, and then I'll kill everything else.
Yeah, I think a sideboard like that as well shows how strong it probably is against like core gates and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like you
definitely.
just don't even need to consider anything for them.
Yeah, definitely. But definitely a sweet one. I guess another thing is obviously Boros Gates doing quite well here. Was one
Yeah,
thing that kind of stood out to me. It was like it's like kind of white weenie-esque, but obviously it's a strange one. It's like a full blown Boros Gates because it's running like Legion. I'm not even gonna pronounce
Conquistador.
that one.
A 3-mana 2/2 Squadron Hawk, essentially.
Yes, and then also runs 4 Squadron Hawks
Yeah.
as well. It's even got 3 Healer Hawks too, just to go all Sacred Cat, like full blown, running 7 copies of Sacred Cat.
Yeah. The Healer Hawk's an odd one, but I quite like the Conquistador alongside the Squadron Hawk as sort of like a way for a Boros deck to just get a bunch of card advantage.
Yeah.
While still just having a bunch of creatures like you can just sort of play your 1/3 mana guy and you've drew 3 cards. Especially when each one of them's going to be like a legitimate threat with a Basilisk Gate. It seems pretty good.
Yeah. I also like it where it gives you cards too for like things like Bitter Reunion as well. So you can turn those pseudo cards into actual cards. You obviously got the Sacred Cat combos too. Yeah, it seems pretty sweet. Definitely, especially with like Bitter Reunion as well. When you're in the late game, is like surprise. Here's my haster plus Basilisk Gate. It's a large haster. But yeah,
I think to me the Healer Hawks, although they look fine, they're probably not where you want to be. But it sort of looks like it's just missing Prismatic Strands, this deck.
Yeah.
Like when you've got your Rafine's Informant and your Bitter Reunions, and the only thing really you want to be discarding is the
Sacred
cats.
Yeah.
I
do
obviously,
agree.
like you say, you can discard like a Hawk here and there, but you want to obviously play them first. So yeah, like turn 2 Rafine's Informants. I don't know how great that is.
No, I can definitely see that. For sure.
Interesting one of great sort of tire as well, if that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah. It is a weird one. I guess obviously you do get to tap a creature obviously to I don't think the +1 counter is really what it's there for, but obviously tapping stuff and it's like a recurring effect. It's quite cheap to play, quite cheap to equip, all that sort of stuff. So, but it is interesting. It's just a one-off.
Yeah, I guess it probably works quite well as well. The games that you can't find a Basilisk Gate, or if it's been like ponzored away, on something like a Guardian of the Guild Pact or like one of your little flyers, it'll eventually just become a pretty decent threat. While also letting your smaller guys through.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, cool list.
And I guess finally, the only thing I've got to touch on is obviously Jeskai Glitters. Seems to be the Jeskai Glitters is the solid deck. Blue White Glitters is kind of like seems to be taking a downward trend. Like there's only 1 copy in the top 16, and in both days.
Yeah, I think Blue White Glitters is one of those where it either does really well or does really badly. So I don't imagine it'll stay down, but yeah, definitely less consistent than the Jeskai version.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and I do hope personally that I do think it kind of stays down because I really don't like the inconsistency of Blue White Glitters. It's very much as you say, it's either all in or it's like, look, I've killed you on turn 3, please leave the game, or I've screwed myself. Sorry. See you next game. And I don't know. I just feel like the Jeskai Glitters has kind of got more about it. It's got more game to it. It's got more like actual playability to it. It makes to me it's just more my style of deck. Finally, I guess just unfortunate on the FAMs missing out on the coming 9th. JN needs to try harder next time. But it's definitely a cool one. Cool list to be fair with the Remove Soul. I know he likes a good old Essence Scatter. The Destroy Evil as well in the main seems like a solid option nowadays, especially with, as you mentioned, all the Murmur Mystics about.
Yeah, it's a very clean answer to Murmur Mystic, really, isn't it? As well. And obviously just hits like Terrors and Anglers and big Glitters guys and the Glitters itself if you need to and stuff like that. So,
but yeah, I just really like I really like the list. I think it looks fairly clean. Obviously, solidifying its kind of creature package to an extent. There's no like random Seagate oracles. There's no random prosperous pirates or whatever the FAMS players play nowadays.
Yeah.
It just looks fairly clean with the odd miser copy of random cards that are just really good, helpful. Like obviously remove soul for like initiative, and Dawn bring a cleric and destroy evil for random decks. That's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like it, and then it fixes itself in the sideboard with a bunch of 1 and 2 ofs. I'm a big fan of Nature's Chant too.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice answer for somewhat like fans to have access to be honest. Obviously very versatile.
And I just like the cost reduction as well. It's just a sweet thing to just have.
Yeah.
That. It's just a nice one. And then obviously you've got Last Breath, which I'm surprised is still in sideboards, to be honest. I always thought it was very much like a fair thing, but like I guess obviously it's got game against random glitters now because obviously the creature's tiny until the glitters go on it.
Blue Black Fair's a thing again.
Yeah. I guess, but it's like, is it enough to warrant? I don't know. Maybe. I guess you only need the one. You can arcane answer it back about 72 times, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm surprised you're not wanting to touch on the gardens. It's not that interesting, but it's just gardens.
Yeah. Like, congrats on the top 8, I guess, but it's it's pretty much a stock list at this point.
Yeah.
I'm still not a fan of that random one of Duress. It's just like, I just want sideboards. That's all that reads to me is I just want sideboard space. Whatever.
Well, sideboard space is something we are struggling with at the moment, so it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
From that perspective.
Yeah, but Duress sucks, let's be honest. It's no thoughtseize. But
do you want to move on to your shout outs, or have you got anything else?
Touching on shout outs, we have got quite a lot, but I think it's the time of year. So congrats to GN for the top 10. Sorry, just missed out. Sorry about that bit of pill. Medvedev, congrats with the top 4 with Dredge. Hamuda, congrats on the top 8 with Jeskai Glitters. Mogged, thank you for returning from playing other Eternal formats to play Pauper and obviously top 8 in with Blue Black Terror. Congrats to Bako, the Pauper Grinder Goat with the top 8 on Blue Black Fear. And finally, congrats to Carrot Eater on the back-to-back top 8s with Gates and the win on New Year's Eve. But yeah, it seems to be, as I said, the 2 events were both the day before Christmas Eve and the day before New Year's Eve. So obviously a lot of them are grinders. So congrats on obviously all these grinders for even playing in this holiday period. Nicely done. Keep it up. Making our jobs a lot easier and a lot more entertaining. Would you like to move on to the hot takes from last week?
Yeah. Although they weren't from last week, they were from 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago. You know what I mean.
It still tracks through, it's fine.
Yeah.
My first one was that Kuldotha will top 8 again, but continue to be pretty low representation. Yeah, it's sort of what is happening. We've seen a few in the top 8s. Still the most played deck, but the pilots, I would say, are quite down on what we expected. Like, there's only 8 pilots.
Yeah, that was the Saturday, the 23rd. So
yeah, that may have to do with the time, like the time of year. But yeah, 8 pilots is pretty low for Kuldotha. Like, we're usually on 12 to 15.
Yeah, it's definitely down, but it's also, there was a lot of deck representation where it used to be a lot more consolidated, to be fair.
Yeah.
You didn't have as many. You had the odd stray archetypes, but it wasn't as very much. It was 5 pilots here, 8 pilots here, 7 pilots. It was a lot of 8s and 7s and 5s, if you know what I mean, as opposed to 17, 12, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely sweet. Mine was Demir Terry will be one of the most represented decks next challenge. And of course that didn't happen, as I touched on earlier. There was only 2 pilots. I only looked at the Saturday, to be honest, for these, so I don't.
The first Saturday.
Sorry, the first Saturday, the 23rd. But yeah, unfortunate.
My next one will be more Tie Them Blades in top 8s. Sort of starting to come true. We are seeing Tie Them Blades here and there. Probably not as many as I would have expected. Obviously the Gardens on the 30th was there, but there wasn't much. I don't think the Blue Black Terror obviously had any, and the Blue Black Fair. So yeah, a lot less Black White Blade than we've been expecting.
Yeah, it's I don't know why it just sort of like was there and then now it was like it's not. It's very odd. Um, but very strange overall. Like I do think that it does have a whole like even in Grixis it's kind of like a 1 of or a 2 of.
Yeah.
So it's a lot lower than I would expect. But maybe I'm just from a Gardens perspective. I like to play Gardens. I like to play the Black White Blade deck, and I just think it's house in both of those. So maybe that's kind of why I'm a bit biased. But yeah, my last one was that Glitters will make a resurgence from the week before the 23rd and have a large success in the top 8 of one of the challenges. It had one copy in each of them 2 weeks after. With both Jeskai builds, and it also doubled its numbers compared to the challenge I was referring to. So
I think Jeskai especially is definitely on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
You see loads of people playing it now. When basically after Pauper again it just fell off.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I think it was something like there was 2 people playing the Jeskai build on the week before the week I was mentioning there, and then there was like I think it was like 8 pilots playing the Jeskai build on one of the challenges. Like it's definitely getting there, and it's definitely getting the eyes on it. I also think not just only the grinders, as you mentioned. I think a lot of the content creators have like really like started to showcase how good it is. Like I've obviously seen Cali do it. I've seen it like I think Salt and Pauper has mentioned it. I think a lot of like even like the Twitter grinders have mentioned it as well. So it's pretty impressive. It's definitely doing really well.
Hot takes from next week.
For next week, yeah, sounds good to me.
As we are back next week.
Mm-hmm.
My first one is that Dredge will top 8 one of the challenges next week, and will probably continue to do so until people stop skipping on Graveyard Hit again.
So I'm going to double down the opposite way, and I'm going to say that Dredge will not have any pilots on either, not just one, on either of next week's challenges.
We know who's losing this and that.
I always lose them, but my point is I think the deck is very, very strong, and I do think people should play it. So I want me to be wrong, and secondly, right, I just don't think people play like memes or what people think are memes, and that's the reason. I just think
you think people won't realize how strong it actually is.
More than I actually think it's not very good. Just to clarify that point.
My second one is sort of a tie onto that. Basically, that we're now in a point where sideboards will be forced to change from the stock bunch of blue blasts and bunch of dust to dusts. Mainly because Jeskai Glitters is obviously picking up a lot, and with Dredge making inroads into the format, if my first hot take comes true with Dredge continue at the top 8, there's going to have to be some cuts from sideboards to fit more Graveyard Hitting.
Hopefully, because I also do think that the standard hit that people have known to use for blue-white glitters doesn't work as well against Jeskai Glitters because it can just grind a lot better.
Yeah, as well as the a lot of the threats just not being artifacts with like Glint Hawks and stuff like that. The Dust to Dust are still obviously very good. I'd say Dust to Dust in particular is probably as good on turn 3, just because you're hitting tapped lands. But I think it just drops off. Like if they get a couple of draw spells off, it's just they're gonna overpower you if you don't have a quick clock behind that Dust to Dust.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I do think not being able to counter the Dust to Dust as well from the Jeskai versions generally, with obviously out the Metallic Rebuke, can obviously hurt it. But as you say, like you don't have as many artifact threats, you can just overpower them with all the draws. So it's kind of like it is a good one. I do hope people do start adapting their removal spells or their sideboards, I guess. Touch on that, I guess. My last one is that Jeskai Glitters will start to replace Azorius, which we've started to see. It's kind of equal-ish. Obviously, Jeskai Glitters has a bigger conversion rate into top 8 as of these past 2 weekends. But I do think it'll start to replace it in terms of numbers. Like at the moment, it's roughly equal-ish in pilots, but I think it'll start to go one way rather than the other. That's my thought.
I don't know. I feel like people are still just going to jam blue-white because it's fun.
It's
more fun.
Is it fun? Is it?
It is when it works.
I guess.
And that's the fun you need in Pauper.
That's the fun.
You need to roll the dice and hopefully you'll kill them.
You know what's wrong with this format? That's what it is. Anything else, Dad, Paul?
No, that's it from me.
So thank you for listening to us in this magical new year. It's obviously going to be a great year for us. I can feel it in my bones. So please, fingers crossed. Yeah, let's go. So please, if you have enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your loved ones, the local Pauper community, anything you want. I'd be really greatly appreciated. Also, please let us know what you think on my magical new editing styles. It's going to be magical. So that is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, and do not forget to stay hydrated. Peace.
See ya.